Mr. President, is Joe Manchin negotiating in good faith?
I didn't negotiate with Joe Manchin. I have no idea.
Okay, so that's Joe Biden, and he's been trying supposedly to get some sort of deal with Joe Manchin as month after month after month ticks by, getting on towards half of his first term, likely his only term. And at every single step of the way, either Joe Manchin or sometimes Joe Manchin will tag in Kirsten Sinema, just comes in and destroys the entire thing. And we're all watching this, waiting for something to happen. And we're supposed to believe that something will happen that will get Joe Manchin to act right, to change his mind, or more likely start to ignore his donors. Maybe it will be one more lunch at the White House. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but we understand and have been telling you at every step along the way about who Joe Manchin is, who he is in DC to represent, and thus what we can expect out of this process. Now, some in the media pretend to not understand these very core things. And we're gonna have a demonstration of that with an awesome rebuttal from Bernie Sanders. Let's take a look.
Senator Joe Manchin, of course, abruptly pulled the plug this week on the Democrats'
No, Martha, he didn't abruptly.
Martha,
okay,
okay. He abruptly on Friday.
He didn't abruptly do anything.
He was
He has
negotiating
sabotaged
for a while.
the president's agenda. No. Look, if you check the record 6 months ago, I made it clear that you have people like Manchin, Sinema to a lesser degree, who are intentionally sabotaging the president's agenda, what the American people want, what a majority of us in the Democratic caucus want. Nothing new about this. And the problem was that we continue to talk to Manchin like he was serious. He was not. This is a guy who is a major recipient of fossil fuel money, a guy who has received campaign contributions from 25 Republican billionaires.
So that is Martha Raddatz, and she's, I don't know, maybe she believes it to some extent, but she's trying to present to the viewers that something abruptly happened, that Manchin had a change of heart, that the negotiations fell through at the last minute. And that's simply not reflective of the process nor the personalities. And so I love having Bernie Sanders there in his very characteristic fashion, who is not going to accept that attempt to spin. But Cenk, I had a feeling you'd probably like that.
Yeah, definitely. I loved what Bernie said. It's about damn time. I'm gonna get back to that. I'm gonna get back to Martha Raddatz in a second too, because I think that's relevant. But first, I've got to comment on the Biden clip because it appears to be major news. So Joe Biden never negotiated with Joe Manchin. Senator Manchin sunk Joe Biden's entire agenda, and he never negotiated with him. Nah. Okay, so if that's true, it's massive news, and it is news of enormous incompetence or indifference. I mean, everyone acknowledges. I mean, the Democrats almost brag about how Manchin has sunk the entire agenda. Oh, there's nothing we can do. It's Manchin. It's not Biden. It's not Pelosi. It's Manchin. You never talked to Manchin? You never talked to Manchin. That's absurd. That's absurd. If that was true, it would be the biggest political malpractice of my lifetime. But of course, it's not true. Biden is lying as usual. He's on the record as having talked to Manchin and negotiated with him several times. And you know how Joe Biden negotiates. Okay, Joe, I'll give you everything. Is that good enough? And then Manchin's like, no, because I was never gonna do this. I just work for my donors. And Biden's like, deal. Okay, he doesn't care. He agrees with Joe Manchin. But it is an indefensible statement. All of American press should pick it up and go, wait, is this even 1% true? Because it's insane not to have negotiated with Manchin. And again, he did. He's just lying as usual. Or maybe he just doesn't know what day of the week it is. He doesn't know that he's president. He doesn't know that he's on this planet. I don't care. Look, all of you Democrats pretending to catch feelings about, oh, how can you say that about Biden? Really? After all this time, really? Come on, you know it too. He barely mentally competent. Come on, everybody knows that. Do you explain that answer? Manchin, I didn't negotiate with him. I never did it. Okay, well then you're a loser. You're a president who's not in charge at all. The buck stops. I don't know, over there or something. What's the buck? I don't know what the buck is. Okay, total loser. Anyway, now getting on to relevant political figures like Bernie. Actually, first Raddatz. Raddatz not only does the standard Democratic talking point that she's been handed by the Democratic leadership, okay, yes, Joe Manchin just had a change of heart. Oh my, all of a sudden decided to pull out. No, he's corrupt. He's been corrupt from day one. But I mean, the very, very, very last people that will find out about corruption is every reporter in Washington who'll be like, corruption? Oh, the billions of dollars? Oh, the billions of dollars. Oh, that affects the politicians. Okay, and she seemed offended on behalf of Joe Manchin, with even on Bernie's light criticism. She's like, the whole time she's like, right? Okay, so you can watch the clip. Of course, I'm doing hyperbole, but not by much. So now finally to Bernie. Yes. But unfortunately, it's probably too late. But I'll take it. It's always better late than never. And yes, for God's sake, thank you for talking about his donors. And from here to oblivion, all you should talk about is the donors. Bernie, they made you every promise in the book. Your beloved friend, Joe Useless Biden, every person in Democratic leadership, your other beloved friend, Chuck Useless Schumer and Nancy Useless Pelosi, they're all your enemies, Bernie. They help destroy your agenda. They do it way better than the Republicans do. So maybe he's at least realized that Manchin is not a friend. It's a good start, and he should talk about how they're all massively corrupt, including his beloved friend, super corrupt Joe Biden.
Yeah. You know, they really never should have put those people in leadership. That middle name should have been a massive red flag. But anyway, yeah, Martha Raddatz either doesn't accept the reality that 99.9% of all these politicians are corrupt, or as maybe you would come down on this side, simply will not tolerate open discussion about it. We are supposed to believe that America is better. American governance is better. There's petty corruption all over the world, but not us, not us. There is a difference between our corruption and their corruption. Our politicians are way better at it, because they don't need to just be handed a bag of money under like a bathroom stall. They've made most of it perfectly legal. Like the petty regimes overseas haven't necessarily gotten to that level of sophistication in it. But anyway, in her attempt to dispute the narrative that this could be about corruption, about his own self-interest, she decides to pretend that he cares about his constituents. Let's take a look.
Okay, Senator, okay, you say he wasn't serious, but Manchin says his main goal is to do what's good for West Virginia, and he's worried about inflation. Listen to what he told the West Virginia radio station.
Yeah, and if Bernie has a dismissive tone, it's because it merits nothing more than a dismissive tone. Oh, Manchin says that he wants to do what's best for the people of West Virginia. Yeah, and has she looked into the damage that climate change is going to do to the people of West Virginia? Or even if we weren't just focusing on the climate change element of this, we know how badly the people of West Virginia need a variety of the forms of help that would come in this larger infrastructure bill. It was a big focus of the conversation last year, the percentage that desperately need the added dental coverage that Bernie himself is one of the major advocates for. Is Joe Manchin looking out for them there? No, he'll come up with something. It'll be the deficit until it's not the deficit anymore, and then I guess it'll be inflation. It'll be something abstract that he'll never be pinned down on exactly what number would be acceptable for us to actually help people for. There's always gonna be something like that. He's a goddamn politician, and Martha Raddatz is acting as if it's a philanthropist, as if it's like a guru or something. Like he's just a selfless guy who's looking out for all the. He literally owns a coal company, and she's acting as if he's a grassroots activist, Cenk.
Yeah. So, look, in terms of the charge that Bernie made about the billionaires, just speaking of the donors, so we looked it up. It's true. Right, huge Republican donors give money to Joe Manchin. So Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots, Ken Langone, one of the worst right wingers in the whole country, one of the co-founders of Home Depot. And then there's private equity moguls, et cetera, right? So tons of massively rich Republicans giving money to Joe Manchin, tons of corporations giving money to Joe Manchin. So, and like today it happens to be Martha Raddatz, but I mean, it's literally almost every single so-called reporter and so-called news anchor in Washington. So she does the same mistake as everyone else, which is, oh, donors, never heard of him. Never heard of him. That affects politics? Never heard of it. Well, instantly, you're the worst reporter in the world. You should retire, but all of you should. And then second of all, Manchin says the good people of West Virginia. Who cares what Manchin says? Why don't you look at the polling? Okay, put aside our views on climate change, be neutral to maybe 99% of the world's scientists are lying, maybe they're in a global conspiracy. What am I, a reporter? I can't figure it out. So forget all that, okay? And just look at the polling. Do the people of West Virginia actually want the provisions of Build Back Better? I mean, Bernie's gonna get into it right now. I can get you an even longer list than Bernie's, but no, the answer is overwhelmingly, the people of West Virginia do not come close to agreeing with Manchin. They want paid family leave, they want child tax credit, they want all of those things. I can show you the polling. But Martha Raddatz has never seen the polling. She doesn't care. She just cares. Oh, beloved corporate Democrat Manchin has lied. I would like to repeat his lies as if they're true and then challenge you aggressively with them, Bernie, as if they have any validity at all. Try looking into facts for once in your life, okay? But you'll never find that on mainstream media. Never. In fact, they'll assiduously hide the polling, hide the facts from you guys, and pretend that the most right-wing legislators that are completely out of touch with the American people are centrist and moderate and wonderfully reasonable. Corporate cash. I drink your milkshake. They all drink the same goddamn milkshake. Yeah. They're all liars. So let's let Bernie tear into this one.
The same nonsense that Manchin has been talking about for a year. West Virginia, it's a beautiful state. I've had the pleasure of being there. Great people. It is one of the poorest states in this country. You ask the people of West Virginia whether they want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. You ask the people of West Virginia whether we should demand that the wealthiest people and large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. Ask the people of West Virginia whether or not all people should have health care as a human right like in every other country on earth. That's what they will say. In my humble opinion, Manchin represents the very wealthiest people in this country, not working families in West Virginia or America.
Love it. There you go. I wish he'd been doing it from day one of the Biden administration. It might have made a difference. It might have created pressure against Manchin. Manchin is very, very sensitive to pressure. But this is the first time that anyone's beginning to just like tiny bit poke him. And look, it's great from Bernie. I'll take it, and it's by far the best in Washington. You know me. That would be about 5% of what I would say about Joe Manchin on TV.
Yeah, well, and imagine you, Cenk, or you watching this. How would you pressure Manchin? How would you respond to what Manchin is doing if you had been fighting for like 50 years to become president, and then you finally, against all odds, become president, and then, oh no, you don't get to do anything. In fact, and maybe you didn't even want to do anything, but you look so incredibly weak and feckless and incompetent, in no small part because of Joe Manchin. And the most you can pull together in response is, well, I didn't negotiate with him. Jesus Christ, like act like this is your life's work, because it is, whether you like it or not. Now, anyway, Bernie identified who Manchin is actually working for, and so let's remind people of that. We're gonna jump ahead to the second graphic. Nation's largest coal producer, Peabody Energy, their PAC donated $5,000 to Joe Manchin just last July. What do you know? They wanted to get out in front of the negotiations over that bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's weird. They gave $5,000 just because they're enthusiasts, they're boosters. It's not to bribe him or anything. And honestly, it seems comical in the wake of it. I don't think they needed to give him that money. The dude was never gonna do anything to stop the earth from burning, but they gave him the $5,000. Here you're seeing, I think, a much more interesting graphic, put together from Senate disclosure forms by Andy Hirschfeld on 218 Investigates. That's just the dividends Manchin was directly getting each year from Enersystem, so his energy company. The $5,000 obviously is interesting, but we're talking about way, way larger sums of money right there. And that is not going into his campaign coffers. That's going directly to him. That's money that one can use to buy another Maserati or perhaps another yacht. And indeed, he's done that. Now, he's gotten that under the current regulatory regime that we have for fossil fuels in America? Would he still be rich under some sort of revised one? Sure, he'd be endlessly rich. He could never spend all the money, but that's never stopped a rich person from condemning us all to a fiery wasteland of a future. And so for his donors, also for his own personal investments, why the hell would he allow the Biden administration or any administration to shake things up, to start to do more regulation on fossil fuels, to start to invest and subsidize in getting domestic renewable energy off the ground? Why would he do that? I'm not asking you. I'm sure that you understand that. I'm asking Martha Raddatz. Why would he do that? What more evidence do you need of a person's personal corruption, political and personal, that they would do all of this for the good, I guess, of their donors, but also especially of themselves? The idea that you could look at those dividends year after year and then say, I bet that's a guy who cares about the people living in the holler or whatever. How could you possibly think that? And how could you be paid, I'm assuming, millions of dollars a year to pretend to believe that, to misinform so many people on a network like ABC?
Well, that's why they pay the millions of dollars, so that you could be a good news actor and not a good news anchor. If you were a real news anchor, you'd be asked to leave the premises immediately. They're like, you're talking about the real reason for politics? The massive corruption? All those billions of dollars that go right, by the way, into our pockets, Martha, here at ABC? Mainstream media is the single biggest beneficiary of political corruption in America. The media gets almost all of the money in politics in the form of advertising. That's why they purposely avoid ever talking about that corruption, which has made them all millionaires. Yeah. And maybe Martha Raddatz doesn't know that. And again, it's not about her. It's about every reporter and every anchor that's on. But they're picked to be lapdogs of the powerful and maintain the status quo. Even if they don't realize that, I got news for you. That's why you're picked. That's why you're on television. That's why you get paid the big bucks to not do journalism. And finally on Biden, John, look, why did he try to be president for 50 straight years? We project our decency and our principles onto these people. No, 99% of politicians are terrible people who only care about their ego. Joe Biden's never cared about a policy in his whole life. I mean, he's most animated when he's talking about how much he loves Mitch McConnell, or how he had great lunches and dinners with segregationists, and oh, my old friend Strom Thurmond, and oh, my beloved friend Mitch McConnell. You know, Mitch McConnell said on Friday, oh yeah, that Chad Meredith, that extremist right-wing anti-abortion judge in Kentucky, McConnell just gave it to me as a personal gesture of friendship. He got nothing back in return. And now Biden has never, ever cared about policy. He doesn't care about you at all. All that stuff about empathy, it's just marketing. It's total nonsense. All he cares about is the people he knows, his beloved donors, his beloved Republican friends, and of course, most important, his giant, giant ego. I am Joe Biden, I have finally become president. What are you gonna get done? Who cares? I have already achieved the pinnacle. It's all about me. And you think he looks weak? I think he looks pathetic. But John, I talked to Bill de Blasio, some of you might have seen that interview earlier today. He talked about a benign bubble. It wasn't so benign. He said the bubble was bad whenever you're an executive, and he was the mayor of New York City. Now take that bubble and multiply it by 200 around the president. Okay, but Joe Biden, when asked about horrific polling numbers that have him at 33% approval, way lower than Trump was at this time, which is just like literally historically bad numbers. Like around 7 out of 10 Democrats saying, don't run again. We don't want Biden. And he's like, he cherry picked one number, and he's like, what do you mean? I'm super popular. And he probably genuinely believes that, because his whole life he has believed that giving in to Republicans and being called moderate by the mainstream media is the greatest thing on earth and the only honor that you should ever seek out. So he probably thinks he's killing it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.